to our Morning Throners podcast.
I'm Nelson.
I'm Jeff.
And I'm Kyle.
And we're the fucking Morning Throners.
All right, and welcome back to another episode of your favorite Song of Ice and Fire podcast. We're the Morning Throners. Theon, 4 on deck, 6 AG.
Good chapter.
Month and a half without our boy. Good chapter. A lot of notes. A lot of stuff going on.
News before we get into it. Avs won. Go Avs. Kyle's lost voice was worth it.
Was the COVID worth it?
As a second punishment, Kyle also has COVID.
Yeah. Who knows, though? I can't promise it came from that because my wife did not get sick. Yeah. So it could have been somewhere I went without her.
I'll say one thing. I know COVID was a very serious disease. Or whatever. It's not a disease. It's a virus.
Sickness, illness.
Super weird that I've been in multiple situations where I've either had it and didn't give it to the person next to me for like periods of time, or I was next to somebody and didn't catch it. Like,
might have to cut this out. We try and not get. I told you, there's like a blue bar you get on Spotify. Jeff's claiming COVID's not contagious is what's happening.
No,
right now.
I'm just saying. It obviously is contagious because I did at one point get it, but the barrier between it's just goofy of like sleeping next to somebody and then not getting it is super weird. But obviously you get it in some sort of situation. But
I'm thinking if your wife doesn't get it, she probably already had it and maybe just had it super mild and doesn't know, and maybe that's why now
it already fought it off. Yeah. Like that's probably what happened.
I don't know. Just because it's supposed to be so contagious, like Jeff saying, like, it doesn't make sense that you should be able to like sleep next to somebody and have not get it.
This is the first either of us have presented symptoms. We've tested. Yeah. And I tested positive. So
yeah. Last piece of news. I don't think we talked about it in the last one. There's a Jon Snow, and I don't know if Kyle even knows. There's like a Jon Snow
spinoff.
Yeah, it's like another show, theoretically another Game of Thrones show centered around Jon Snow that's going to come out.
Supposedly, I heard Kit Harington was like,
I heard it was all his idea.
I'll do a show if you want me to be Jon Snow, because
I heard it was like his idea, like he proposed it.
Right. Because I think he's failing as an actor outside of Jon Snow.
I don't know, like, does he have anything else that he's good in? I don't know.
I hate to say this, but I already dislike the idea of the show.
You saw the finale, right, Kyle?
Kind of. It's been a little bit now. I mean, I kind of have an idea. Yeah. But no, it doesn't even, regardless of whatever any of the stories are, I just hate the oversaturation that we're seeing today of everything. Yeah. It's like anything comes out, sees success, it's like, oh, now we need to know this character story, this character story, this character story, this character story, that character story.
I do agree with you. I think
get the fuck out of here. Like, I don't care. It's too much.
Hey, as Game of Thrones content creators, we should be all about this. It's just more content for us. What if our podcast takes off and we eventually make money off this? The more shows, the better for us, right?
Nels. I don't want to be just like you watching Kenobi and motherfucking every episode. Yeah. Like, it's like I feel like we're very excited for the House of Dragons and Dunk and Egg and everything like that because we're pretty psyched to see that story. We know we're probably not psyched about what Dave and Dave are going to cook up for the Jon Snow spinoff.
I'm not saying I disagree with Kyle. I am also not excited for this, and I haven't really seen any other like Game of Thrones content creators. I don't think anybody's really excited for this. Most people are like, just let that shit die. And like you're saying, Jeff, like there's other stuff you can touch on. George has already written other stories in this world. Do that. It's already there, right? It's Kyle's saying,
everyone would rather see Dunk and Egg live action than.
But yeah, I think I agree with Kyle a little bit. Like 100%. Like this one feels forced, right? Like there is no material for what they're making this on, and there won't be material what they're making this on for a while because like we need books.
I don't know that even matters. So I think even if George just continued to write these like spin-offs of like characters that aren't, I mean, Jon Snow is important, I guess, but they're like support main characters or whatever. Like it just like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like I get it, he's like an important guy, but like he's not the lead of that story ever, right?
And to the point, like I was listening to some guys talk about it, like Kenobi, we know kind of, and this is I think Nelson's big point. Like we know nothing really happens to him. Yeah. So they're just kind of like making a story up kind of, right? And
the other thing, for 100% I agree with you for the one thing, but the thing for the Jon thing for me is it feels like I guess along the same lines, it feels like even though a lot of people didn't like it, theoretically, like where the show ended should line up somewhere with what George has in mind for the ending of the books. So if even this Jon show seems to me like outside the scope of Winds of Winter and Dream of Spring, like what would be in that? So it just does seem like extra stuff that they're doing just to make a buck off of it.
Yeah, and I kind of hate everybody's afraid to let stuff end because I mean you saw it with Game of Thrones. I think it's a good one here. It's like because it is always going to disappoint somebody, right? And so if you just keep running it on and on and on and on and on.
Well, and it's a money thing, right? There's this
you see it with Star Wars every time. Like, half are happy and half are pissed, and like that's a problem. That's another problem. But it's like Rogue One was. I just want to say one more thing. Rogue One was unbelievable as a movie.
Good movie. Yes, agreed. So there's good ways to do it, and sometimes it's good. But I think for the most part, it ends up bad when you do it.
It's tough. It's tricky. It's like a sequel.
You named one good one.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say Solo was awful.
I didn't see that one. Or maybe I did. I don't know.
It's not great. I literally fell asleep during the movie in the movie theater, and I consider myself a pretty big Star Wars fan.
You see how many sequels just fail as a movie. Like a sequel as a show is even harder because it's not a 2-hour deal.
The problem is people buy it, though.
16-hour deal. Yeah, or people watch it. I don't know if they buy it.
Like there's a Daniel Tosh joke about Brett Favre retiring and how like Brett Favre would be like, they're like, hey, Brett, everyone thinks you should retire. And he's like, yeah, but if I come back, like I might not be the best anymore, but I'm still going to make millions of dollars, right? He's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to come back next year then. And if I was Brett Favre in 5 years from now when I'm not good enough to be a starter, I like, wait, I can be second string? I'm still going to make millions of dollars? Yeah, I'm going to do that too. They're like, oh, I'm not good enough, but you can go down to the practice squad. Oh, that still makes $500K? Yep, I'm going to keep doing that. Like, when there's money behind it, fuck yes, people are going to do it, even if it's not as good as it was.
I understand the motivation. I think you're just ruining concepts and stories is what I'm getting at, I guess, and overwashing it. And like, I don't know if I said it on the podcast before and give me hate, whatever, I don't care. But like the whole Marvel thing, like the fact that there are fucking 37 movies and like 18 accompanying TV shows. Like, get the fuck out of here.
It's to the point, Kyle, where I stopped watching them. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah. Even fans like you stopped caring about it.
I wasn't a fan. I like kind of was like, all right, I'll try and be a fan. And I watched them in order and I was like, I'm over. I'm tired.
Yeah. And it's a lot of the same story, just regurgitated. And it's just, there's only so much content and things. You can only reskin it so many times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're Batman.
And here we are. It's saturated. All right. Back on this episode of Theon.
Yeah.
All right, Kyle. What'd you think of Theon 4?
Hope you guys enjoyed that non-Morning Throners podcast. That's a taste in when we go off-throning.
But it's all relative.
It was related, to the Jon Snow stuff.
Sometimes I like to talk about some bullshit. I feel like fans like to talk about bullshit, too.
Normally, when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm not a big fan when they get too off. Like, again, if they get off topic in a related fashion, I don't mind it. But like, so I listen to some podcasts where they'll start off with like 10 minutes of like, oh, what have you guys been up to? And I'm like,
yeah, I don't care about your day to day.
Yeah, like I don't mind it, but sometimes it gets a little like laggy, like it'll lag on a little bit. Maybe we just crossed that line, but let's get back into it.
Yeah, we might have. Just don't do it again. Is all. You know, I think you can do an episode.
We always stay right on track.
Well, usually it's like peppered in.
Yeah,
this was like in your face.
In your face.
We had a section for it this time.
We all have an opinion on it, so it was fine. But
yeah, getting into the chapter. Kyle, thoughts?
I mean, I'm a little disappointed that it started where it did. Is what I would say about this chapter. I think it's good, and I guess it's a good way to kind of build the suspense off of what we learned last Bran.
Yeah. Are you saying you'd rather it be a Bran?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, like. Literally, the last thing we heard from him was that his summer was struggling to get up that tree.
Yeah. I feel it at times. Like I want like a Joffrey POV instead of a Sansa. Because you want to. So I kind of appreciate that it's Theon and not Bran because I feel like we get a lot of Bran. So I want it from Theon's.
I think it's part of the choice is like there's some mystery left in. There's some mystery at the end of the chapter, right? Because of
Yeah, and that's what I was saying. I guess is that's the way to kind of build the suspense. Exactly.
All right, so he wakes up from sleep with a girl.
Yep, wakes up, starts in the middle of the night. So this whole chapter basically takes place like over the course of a day, from maybe like 5 a.m., 4 a.m. till dusk.
Maybe basically. Even earlier. Yeah,
I guess
he's rounding the troops up, and the sun's starting to come. So
yeah, exactly.
I'll say like 3 o'clock. Maybe he wakes up from sleep. 4 o'clock, he realizes he needs to like. Get everybody together.
Yep.
He's got his lady from before, right? This is the same one that was like making fun of him or like you'll never be a lord or something like that, I feel like.
What do you mean?
No, that was
the show.
That was
yeah,
Roz.
it's in the show. Yeah, he did mention to Rob in the chapter where like Rob and Theon are riding out to go hunting or something. It's the chapter that ends up with them getting attacked by the wildlands. When they're riding through Wintertown at the beginning, Theon is like nudging Rob, like, "Oh, that tavern over there is where this girl I knew, or I like banged this girl." And Rob's like, "Shut up, Bran's with us," or whatever. Theon's like, "Okay, I'll tell you later."
Yeah, from the sounds of it, Theon's banging everybody.
He gets around. This is the first name we got. Like, he didn't give Rob a name.
Like married girls too.
Yeah. 2 married girls we hear.
At least he says he does. We don't have proof of a lot of that.
Yeah. And the one where he rides out with Bran, they don't mention the girl's name. Here we hear this girl's name is Kyra. There's a chance it's the same girl, chance it's a different girl.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, she's just like some tavern girl from Wintertown, and he kind of gets this like weird like pleasure of fucking this girl in Ned's old bed, like in the Lord's chambers.
And she was all ready for it.
Theon is all over the place throughout this whole chapter. Like, there's some times where he's like, I need to handle this situation like Ned. And then some situations like where he was like clearly respecting Ned.
Yeah.
And some situations where he's like, I'm fucking this tavern girl in his bed. Like, fuck this guy. Like, and the same with his dad. Like,
we have friends that would be like this though now. It's like,
for sure, but I just feel like
I can name a couple guys that would be like, fuck you. And then it's like, oh fuck, that guy was kind of smart. Like, what would I do to kind of be like him? Like,
Glow. What a piece of shit.
Not the exact friend I was thinking of, but Glow might have fallen in there.
Sorry, he's not even here to defend himself.
If the shoe fits, though, yeah.
All right, so he wakes up, not even from a dream. He just kind of wakes up and he's like, this doesn't feel right. I need to go find out what's wrong. And he's getting out of bed. He's kind of listening for alarms. Nothing's really happening.
Yeah.
He knows he's got guards on his door, and he goes over to the window.
Yep.
It's quiet. Too quiet.
Exactly.
No wolves.
He gives himself a little pat on the back for realizing, like, my hunter's instinct. Something in my hunter's instinct realized that there was no wolves.
Nobody else would have noticed that these wolves are
apparently
gone.
Nobody else did notice. At least none of the Ironborn, but...
yeah.
I mean, those 30 dudes were definitely not... probably even really that aware of the wolves, right? Like, this had to be pretty early.
He does mention that they've basically been howling since they took over the castle. Like, they've been going crazy.
Yeah, when was that? That's, I guess, what I'm saying by early.
A couple of weeks.
I give it about 2 weeks based on map stuff because he says Stig has had time. He thinks that he sent this person Stig to go get reinforcements from Asha at Deepwood Mott, and he thinks that it's probably been about enough time for him to get there and probably start heading back. So Deepwood Mott's about half the distance to the wall, but it's through forest instead of on the King's Road. So if I estimate, we know it takes 2 weeks to get to the wall from Winterfell. I'm guessing it probably takes about 2 weeks to get there to Deepwood Mott as well, because it's half the distance but through way worse terrain. So that's my guess. So it probably has been 2 weeks since.
And it's an inexperienced guy on a horse too.
Yeah, he's an Ironborn, right? So he's not the best rider exactly. So
go ahead. Nels.
I was gonna say one other weird thing is Theon has his squire Wex sleep,
dude,
just
weirdest
like on the
thing.
Floor. At the
Super weird.
Yeah, I know. I was like, at first, I was like,
I thought Wex was a dog.
Right?
I thought Wex was a dog at first, and I was like, wait, that's the mute kid.
Yeah, it's the mute 12-year-old boy. Yeah,
that's so fucking weird.
The thing is,
he's smarter than Theon.
I mean, Theon says he's clever. Like in the first chapter when we first see him, he's like winning tiles in a tavern against like grown men. He's a 12-year-old kid.
Yeah, I mean, he's smarter than everybody in the party, and like
when they find the tracks or whatever, right? But
maybe
it's a thing that everybody does is have their squire very close at hand, but you'd think you'd give him at least like a blanket.
Give him like the room next door.
Well,
he
doesn't
something.
even have a blanket. He's wrapped up under his cloak on the floor.
Yeah, on a dirt floor and a dirt floor too, right?
I mean, I would hope would, but
and couldn't he have used him as like a sentry as well? Like maybe not like super far away from his room, but like maybe the guy at his door could have not been there because Wex was there to blow the horn or something.
I don't know.
Well, Wex got to sleep because he's got a squire for him all day.
We got to find out where Pod sleeps in relation to Tyrion.
I guess. Yeah.
Maybe Tyrion has Pod do the same thing. Who knows?
Yeah, I don't know. Super weird.
We haven't heard about Pod in quite some time. I don't think they sleep together.
We just hear him every time somebody comes in. Tyrion yells for him. Hey, get Bywater. Go get berries.
So he sends a guard to check on the wolves, and he wakes Wex up to go check on Bran and Rickon.
Yep.
Wex makes it back first and shakes his head no, and Tyrion's like, "Oh fuck, Theon, yeah. What did Theon think? Like, I knew I should have locked him up or something like that.
Him. So he thinks like a few things about the chapter. Here he thinks I just should have killed him as soon as I took the castle. Later he thinks I should have skinned him, and then eventually he thinks I should have drowned him. So he goes through killing these wolves in multiple ways. But yeah, he's like, I should have done something about him.
Oh, I was thinking Brandon Rickon. Doesn't he think of something about Brandon Rickon too? Like
he thinks that he didn't put anybody on to guard their door.
Oh, right? He should have guarded their door. Right. He knew he was going to keep them alive, but he
guard
definitely
himself,
wants to kill
guard them or guard the walls. You can only basically pick 2 of 3. It seemed like is what he was decided.
And one's a crippled that can't walk.
Yeah. So what's the point?
So he's like, all right, get everybody up. We'll see who's missing.
Yeah, but this is where he tells himself that when he goes to talk to these people, he's got to treat them like Ned. I got to be cold and delivered just like Ned would be.
Yeah.
So he also has Black Lauren go take a round of the gates, find out, like, make sure everybody on watch is on the up and up.
What happened?
They're still on watch.
Yeah.
Make sure they're still on watch.
They're not dead floating in the moat.
Yeah.
So Wex comes with Theon. They go and check the people in the yard, right? This is where he mentions.
Yep, they quickly walk down.
They go down and check the people in the yard. They start getting people.
Yeah.
The people are starting to filter in.
He reflects on how he feels that he's treating these people fairly.
That's what I'm saying. He's so confused and like he's so conflicted in his own head. Like just doesn't know. Yeah. He's delusional, basically.
He's delusional, power hungry. You know, he's overthinking everything, overanalyzing. Thinks he's the best. Narcissistic.
Feels like he's got a lot to prove.
All I need is my bow.
Yeah,
he's got a lot of shit going on.
Yeah, it's like there's a couple times where he's like, "I'm protecting you. I'm protecting you people. Why don't you love me?"
Yeah.
Like, dude, you just took over the castle. Who are you protecting them from? The only reason they need protection is because of you. Like, the guards wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you.
And I mean, he's already killed 2 of their friends, like community members, and a girl got raped by 2 guys, and he drowned the Septon in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Like, Nelson, I know you haven't watched Bad Traveling yet, but you should because it's literally this pretty much.
Is that robots show you told me about on Netflix?
Death, Love, and Robots? Love, Death, and Robots?
Yeah. I'll check it out. I finished Peaky Blinders.
20 minutes long. One episode, 20 minutes long.
I'll watch it.
You'll enjoy it. Jeff, you might enjoy it, but I can.
Right.
There's a main plot point that I think Nelson will really enjoy.
All right, I'll check it out for sure.
But it's pretty much like just this how you can justify killing all these people to yourself, like you're doing good, is really like the main point.
Yeah, because I just read that book Ordinary Men, which is kind of all about that same thing. Yeah. So Theon's thinking like basically he thinks about this. Another thing he thinks about a couple times throughout the chapter. Basically, he's afraid of embarrassing himself. He doesn't want Asha to find out that he lost his star. So he's gonna look like a fool. He doesn't want his dad to find out. He's gonna look like a fool. So I think again, part of this is like trying to prove himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he's definitely lost.
Yeah, and in terms about like the whole like protecting people thing, we hear that in the last one it was unclear. It was like strongly hinted at that this Kennel girl, Farland's daughter Paula, was raped. We hear that 100% she was for sure now. Theon had the men that did it whipped, and one of them is even the one that dies. That we find dead later on. But he's like trying to be just and like so he whips the people that rapes Paula, but then he throws their septon down a well to please the drown god, right? So he talks about like how
he's trying to play both sides of the fence for sure.
Is that like you can't do this?
Well, I mean, he even thinks about it later on. It's like I'm trying to act like my dad, but I want to be more than my dad. So I know I can't act like my dad, but this is how my men are going to follow me by acting like my dad.
We joke about this a lot, and he says
he's super conflicted.
We've made this joke on the podcast at least 10 times now, and he says it at the end of the chapter, but like it's how it ends. He says like you can be feared or loved, or you can be feared or laughed at or something, and he'd rather be feared than laughed at or something. But what he really wants is exactly what Michael Scott wants. He wants people to fear how much they love him. Exactly. He's like, why can't? It's like I don't understand why the Ironborn and Starks both don't love me. It's like, dude, they're enemies. Like you can't get both sides to love you. Like
it's not like he ran for the position and they voted him. he overtook the spot.
He acts like he's like the savior of Winterfell. Like he's showing up and saving these people from the
start.
Winterfell
was fine.
They were totally fine.
There,
yeah, exactly. So I think he's like really delusional in this chapter.
Agree. So anyway, they show up at the gate, right? That's where we're at pretty much.
So Black Lauren and Erzin tell him, you need to come check out the Hunter's Gate. So they run out and they get there, and it's a different kind of gate because it opens out to the woods where the other gates kind of open out in the Wintertown or probably just in the open field.
Yeah, this is almost more of a back door for hunters. Exactly.
Yeah, it's like, all right, let's just get out and start fucking hunting shit down.
Before we get too far past it, though, Septon Shale, so he gets thrown in the well. He says it's for the drown god. He was the last person from the jraijin vision, right? So jraijin says that Septon Shale, Alebelly, and Mikken are going to die, all drowned. Mikken gets stabbed. Bran thinks he gets drowned on his own. He drowns on his own blood. We don't know how Alebelly dies. We just hear he died on the gate. But Septon Shale literally got thrown down a well and like drowned.
He actually drowned.
Yeah. So
jraijin's doing all right.
So the two people that they find dead were named Squint and Drennan.
Yep.
Squint was floating in the moat with his entrails trailing behind him. And we find out that it's a lot worse when they pull him out. And Drennan was killed while being seduced by a lady friend, we assume.
We find out Osha, pretty sure Osha later, but yeah. At this point, all we know is that there's 2 wine cups and he's like
there's
half
2
naked.
people, he's half naked, and he's got his throat slit. And he's the guy that he raped the girl because he's got they can see the lashes on his back.
Yeah, and he's thinking, well, Theon walking up there, he's like, man, if this guy let the Starks escaped, he's going to get it worse than he got for whipping, but he already got it worse than he got the whipping. And
this is kind of where we've kind of think, or we don't think, we hear of how Theon thought to protect Winterfell because he's got a limited resource of men. The walls are huge. There's 2 of them.
Yep.
How am I doing this? Like, what's the point? And
he's keeping his people on the inner walls because if
higher and they're closer.
Yeah, if there's an uprising, he wants them to not have to cross a moat, right? He doesn't want the people of Winterfell to basically be able to raise all the drawbridges and have his men now stuck on the outside. And yes, they're higher, so they can basically still see everything, except for you would have to assume close to the walls, right? If there's an inner, outer, you'd lose that visibility really close to the outer wall. But yeah, pretty good. And yeah, it goes back to the thing of him not covering Bran's door because instead he decided the walls are more important than the doors, which makes sense, right? You can't escape the castle if you're guarding all the doors and the walls. Who cares if you're guarding the door? But it's when you got these guards and these wolves.
Like, you had to know Bran was the monkey man, right? And like knows all these secret paths in and out.
Yeah, but he doesn't have legs. I mean, you don't mean in terms of climbing.
I know, but he like knows people there.
Which gets into the next part of where he's like, well, there had to be 2 other people to help, right?
Because
someone needed to carry.
Walk and neither can Rickon, really.
Yeah, someone was in here with Drennan, distracted him, and then when they get the guy's body out, they're like, this was 100% the wolves, but still somebody had to be like letting them escape while this guy probably distract Drennan. Then once he's distracted, I'll go let the wolves escape or whatever, right? I
don't even think it's that. I think it's just the fact that somebody had to carry Bran and somebody had to carry Rickon.
Well, yeah, but here he says there's 2 because one to distract and one to free the wolves is what he says here. But yeah,
I don't think he knows that nobody had to free the wolves. I don't think.
Yeah, even if they did, Bran could have taken Hodor down and freed the wolves, probably,
or either of the Reeds. Yeah. So Erzin makes a comment like, if he would have blown his freaking horn, there's other people out here that could have come and stopped this.
Yeah, he blows his top here.
Yeah, and
Geeks.
Because they've seen his body, he's got like a huge chunk missing out of his neck, his arms off, his entrails are out. Theon knows this is the wolves, assumes it was probably both of them, and then sets up this
grabs him by the throat, and he's like, when the fuck do you think he had a chance to blow the horn? When he was walking down the steps and there were just eyes glowing at him, and then next thing you knew they were on top of him. Like, what do you think, man?
Green and gold eyes, yeah.
I could picture Gordon Ramsay saying this line in the most vicious way to you foolish fucking dog.
Yeah. Just ripping into
fool, how'd you serve this? Yeah.
You're an idiot sandwich, say it.
Tell me, at what moment during all this do you stop to blow your fucking horn? I love Gordon.
So he grabs him by the throat, like Kyle said, pushes him to the ground, gets it real into his face.
Yeah. Black Lauren's like, let's go get him.
Yeah. Black Lauren's like, change the subject. Let's
go. We gotta go hunt him down. And he's like, fuck no, I'm not going out there with these wolves at night. Like, you fucking stupid.
Yeah. What's funny, one interesting thing too is Erzin says people should have seen, I see torches right there in that guard turret, and Theon's like, torches but no guards. I have more turrets than I have people, so I just put torches in all of them, so it looks like there's people there.
And we find out there's 9 people walking around the gates.
Yeah, exactly. Black Lauren gives us the count. There's 4 men on the main gate and 5 people on the walls. Right, so
there's a lot of unmanned walls. It's like
castle.
The wall, basically.
Exactly.
All right, so they get to the yard, and the count, they're all naked too, right? Barely clothed. It's kind of like a college fire drill where you just got in the shower.
Somebody burned popcorn at 2 a.m. Everybody's gonna walk out in their freaking quad and their fucking boxers, sheet around their shoulders.
And we find out that there's 6 people missing: the 2 Starks, the 2 Reeds, Osha, and Hodor.
Yep, big boy Hodor.
And he's mostly mad at Osha.
That bitch. Yeah. What interesting thing too is he thinks that the reason he's gonna wait till sunrise to go after him is he knows that hunting 2 direwolves in the woods at nighttime, the hunters quickly become the hunted in that situation.
Yeah, you're putting yourself in a disadvantage for sure. These things have night vision, you don't.
So he thinks that he should never have trusted Osha because again in the last Bran chapter Reek basically says hey, I'm their prisoner, I'll serve you, and Osha's like, I was their prisoner too, I'll serve you too.
There's more delusions that you're talking about though. He said he had suspected her from the moment he saw that second cup. No, he didn't.
Yeah, he would have thought it.
Yeah, I knew it. It had to be her.
It's kind of funny here that he thinks of his sister too.
Well, what's interesting is this came out before the show, right? And in the show, they give Theon's sister a different name because they were afraid people would get confused with Osha and Asha. So they named Theon's sister in the show Yara just to make it more different. So I don't know. It's kind of funny. It almost seems like a callback to the show from George, but this is before that even happened. So, he's just kind of Theon's kind of comparing them just because their names sound similar.
Well, and they're unnatural as, and I'm taking that as unnatural as kind of women.
Not the natural, not your average woman. Exactly.
Yeah.
Is what he's saying.
Yep.
I don't
Yara, I just said it. Fucking Asha's running the fucking crew that's taken over, a spot, and Osha was a spear lady, with the wildlings escaping and what.
They're both fighters, definitely in more manly roles. Like when Theon's like, "What about your suckling babe?" Because Asha pretends to be a pregnant wife or whatever when he first meets her, and she pulls out an axe out of her fucking cleavage, "This is my fucking babe," and throws it across the both of them are they're not dressy dress. They're not Sansa.
And she Odell Beckham's the throwing axe at the dinner.
Yeah, one hands it. Yeah, exactly.
We also get word that no horses are missing, including Dancer.
Yeah, Rick doesn't really know what that means, but Theon.
Yeah, what the fuck?
It's interesting that Theon's thinking about that. That's a good thought
I do feel like Theon, at times, wasn't stupid. He might have ran out in the middle of the dark to go hunt him down.
Yeah. Again, I'm not trying to say Theon's the best commander ever, but I've said this before. He doesn't do super stupid stuff. The way he attacked the Stony Shore, you guys were "Oh, it's a Stony Shore, who cares?" But he did. He attacked at nighttime. Even the way he attacked Winterfell, attacking at nighttime, a little bit of trickery, right? He's not an idiot. He's very delusional, and he's got.
He only had 30 guys, so it's not like you can attack it broad daylight.
I think if Theon could just see a therapist an hour and a half a week, he could be a pretty good lord in the Seven Kingdoms. You know what I mean? He's got some daddy issues.
If he just maybe learned from Ned a little bit more and didn't want to be a little jackass all the time.
Exactly.
All right, so now he's just in the full-on interrogation mode. All right, who helped him? Who turned a blind eye?
Well, again, he's putting pieces together. He realizes that if they didn't take any horses, okay, this should be easy. They're on foot.
Yeah.
Bran can't fucking walk, and Rickon's 4. So we got Osha carrying Rickon.
So basically carrying him too.
Yeah, I should be able to catch these guys, is where he's thinking now. He basically tells everyone in the castle what's going on. Hey, these guys are gone. Where are they? Who helped them? Yeah. Everyone's giving him the silent treatment.
Yeah, nobody even flinched.
And this is, again, some delusions. He's like, "Oh, Gage, me and Gage are friends. He used to always smile at me. Hey, Gage, you want to come hunt down Shaggy in summer?" And he's no reply. And he's like, "Oh, that's weird." It's he's just going through all these people he used to have a good relationship with. He's like, "Oh, I don't know why they don't like me anymore." You're an idiot, dude.
Yeah, that is
completely changed sides now. Yeah, you're not friends anymore.
You've went from an ally to an enemy, and
he's trying to be friends with everybody. It's it just.
And if we know one thing, the Northmen are a lot more loyal than probably anywhere else in the kingdom. Yeah, right.
Always.
Of just
for sure.
We serve the Starks. We don't serve a castle. We don't serve an area. That's our fucking family. That's who we're serving. Fuck you.
Yep. So he goes through more people. Joseph, Farland, Barth, who is who we hear. This is another woman who's the brewer's wife, who apparently the first woman he ever fucked took his virginity.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. I don't believe him.
I feel that's not a huge gloat. And again, he's not saying it out loud. He's just thinking it. Why would you? Is he lying to himself here?
Yeah, I guess.
He has been all chapter,
I'm not
right?
saying it's a serious question. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Yeah, maybe, but like Brewers, maybe she's not that old. Like I'm thinking like his first time, he was probably like saying he was like 14, 13, you know, like this married lady's going to be like, oh yeah, Theon, like, let's go.
I mean, she's probably only 20 though. Like you're getting married way younger then, right?
Yeah. That's like a crime in today's world.
I mean, so is what Drogo did to Danny, but
I was just saying, Jeff, did you read the first book?
Yeah.
Any of the second book?
They were married.
So when they're giving him the silent treatment, Reek has a little suggestion on how to get some people to spill the beans if they know anything.
Strip them down.
Roose Bolton has this saying.
Naked man has few secrets, but a flayed man's got none.
It's like, holy shit. And Theon kind of goes back into that, right? Like old ways die hard. Like,
yeah. Well, it goes into the history of it. Like they used to flay their enemies, and then it got outlawed hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
And Bruce is still doing it behind closed doors, it seems like.
Yeah. Well, Theon says old ways die hard, as I know, right? Because he just went back to the Iron Islands and his dad's giving him shit about the iron price and like we're drowning people. Yeah, so his people are one of the ones who still practice these kind of brutal, old, cruel ways. So it doesn't surprise him that that's still going on in other places.
But he's not doing any flaying.
There will be no flaying in the north so long as I rule in Winterfell. Like, all right, Theon, like...
Just a Ned rule. It's a Ned rule. It's a good
rule, but his first thought is, you guys should be thanking me. It's like, okay, just because you made one good rule, it doesn't mean it's like they should be thanking you.
And he thinks it again, too, like in a second. It was like, all right, like, it's going to be worse if I'm gone. Like, you're going to miss me.
Yeah, but if you never came, it would be way better. So, yeah.
Yeah. So he's like, all right, fuck it. You guys aren't doing it. All right. Dawn, we're going to go off. Joseph?
This is where he assembles his team. Yeah.
Murch, Garrus, Poxy, Tim, you're coming as hunters. Murch and Garrus are two really good huntsmen, and Tim was a fine bowman. Agar, Rednose, Gelmar, Reek, and Wex are his men for his protection. And he also is like, Farland, I'm gonna need your hounds. Farland's the only one that like stands up and like, nah, I don't want to do this. Like, why would I go hunt down my two lords?
Exactly, yeah.
And their babies? And he's like, because I'm your lord and I protect your already raped daughter.
Yeah, he's saying like, oh, you should do this because you're thankful for protection, but it's a threat. He's like, I'm gonna have men rape your daughter if you don't help me. Like, you're so delusional, Theon.
Yeah.
So, like, I keep hammering this nail, but he just hit me over the head like 50 times this chapter. Like, wake the fuck up, dude. Pick a side. You can't be on both sides. Just pick one.
Joseph, Murch, Garrus, and Poxy Tim are all Winterfellians.
Yes.
And Farland.
Yeah. I mean, we already
Farland
went through that, but okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
So then he's looking around and he sees Lewin and he's like, "You're definitely coming because I don't trust you."
Yep.
And then they do get a volunteer,
a Walder. And throughout the entire chapter, we never hear which Walder it is. He just says,
"I think both
Walder.
end up." Do both end up coming?
No, that's what I thought at first, but later
they end up riding out with two kids. Who would be the other kid?
Wex. Wex is 12.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I thought it was two at first too, but later on he keeps like referring to like just the one Walder that's with him.
I'm gonna say it's Little Walder because
Big Walder?
the other one starts talking.
Little Walder is
the Big Walder.
Little Walder is
that was a joke. Thanks, Nelson.
But younger, yeah.
And I say that because
I'm just trying to like get it right in my own head. Yeah.
The other one talks shit right away.
Yeah, we kind of hear that like the Little Walder, who is the big one, is more like the pushy. I do this, I do that, and the other one is the more like smart one. Yeah, so it kind of makes sense that it would be Little Walder, but again, I don't think we ever hear. Which one. I don't know if it really matters either.
Yeah, fuck them.
They're kind of both dickheads, right?
Well, they're going to hunt out the Starks already. Yeah.
Yeah, and the kid's saying like, "Hey, I hunt and I want to be warm in the winter, so I'll go."
Yeah.
Fuck those kids. I'll hunt them down.
Again, it makes sense because didn't these kids get into a little scuffle with the wolves, right? Because they were playing the Lord of the Crossing. One knocked over Rickon. He yelled, and then the guy got attacked by Shaggy Dog. So it makes sense why they have a vendetta against these wolves.
And Theon's like, all right, Black Lauren, you're going to stay here. You're going to be in charge. And this is what I was saying, like another moment where it's like, it's going to be a lot worse under Black Lauren. So you better hope I come back.
I don't think he said that, but yeah, he thought it for sure. Yeah.
He thinks it.
He's like, that'll incentivize them to cheer for me.
Just delusional, dude.
Yeah, he's wacky.
All right. So the men assemble the next morning, or in a couple hours, the men assemble armored, so we kind of hear what everyone's taking to fight off the dire wolves. Someone's got a long axe, a couple bow, or Theon's got his bow. Someone's got a boar spear. So they're going for length here.
Yes, distance.
They don't want these wolves coming.
You don't
to get
want them closing that distance. Exactly.
They got a dozen dogs too, including 2 big old mastiffs.
And the red bitch, it seems to be the best.
That's the smeller. Yep, that's one of the snarls on them. And Theon, so they go out, they see the tracks, basically going north by northwest.
Easy. I got these motherfuckers.
This is probably a good spot to pull up the map, huh?
If you ever did anything right, now would be the time to do it.
Yeah, so here's the map for the Theon chapter. So it's kind of hard to read some of this text, especially the stuff that's in the middle of the woods, but the black circle in the top left is Deepwood Mott's. That's where Osh is at. Black circle bottom left, Torrhen Square, theoretically where Dagmar Cleftjaw is laying siege or whatever they were doing there, right? That's where Roderick went. So
that's where, okay.
Here Theon says, I would have thought they would have went towards Roderick, which is more south, but instead they went north by northwest, which is where this white arrow is. He thinks it wouldn't be funny if they ran into Asha, because Asha, again, he said Stig, he just sent Stig to Deepwood Mott to bring back people from bring back men, like reinforcements with Asha. So Asha theoretically is kind of coming through the same area where they're going. And then later on, when the orange, again, those are black because Greyjoys theoretically hold those 2 spots. Orange is the umber colors. He says at the end, what's Reek say? I think they went to the northeast to go towards.
There's an old mill northeast. Yeah,
but he said that their end goal there would be
to the umbers.
Exactly. So, yeah, those are the really locations we hear. So this white line is kind of the direction Theon and them head out at, is where they're basically chilling this chapter.
Good map, Nels.
Roger that.
All right, so they leave deep tracks. They see everybody's feet. They can make them out. Paws, Hodor's big feet, the 2 reeds, and even Asha.
Yep.
And the tracks a little bit further start to get covered by leaves, so they're not really leaving them, but the hounds do have a scent.
Yep.
So they keep going, and they keep going, and they keep going. And he's like, fuck, like, I hope these guys don't, I hope if they do go to Deepwood Mott in that direction, I hope they don't get the Asha before we get them, because that would look bad on my part.
He'd rather have them dead. It's better to appear cruel than foolish, which again is like, I don't know if that's true, but okay.
Well, with his family, it
like,
is.
Whatever.
I would say with his family, it is.
Yeah. I guess.
I mean,
what he's trying to do.
Even in, like, would you rather look like Tywin or look like Patchface?
Well, again, this whole effort, right, that Theon's doing here is like, I need to the whole reason he took Winterfell, right, he doesn't really I don't think he really cares about owning the North. It's more of like, I need to prove myself to my family. My dad's treating my fucking sister like she's the heir right now. I'm the fucking heir. I'm proving myself.
I'm give him a castle.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's all for naught if I end up being a fool at the end of the day anyway, right? Like, this is all to make me look good is the point. So yeah.
So then Lewin comes up and he's like, not much of a hunt we got going on here. Seems more like a stroll in the woods.
Yeah, and Theon's like, yeah, that's pretty much what hunting is, except there's blood at the end. And this is where Lewin starts kind of asking for mercy. He's like, there doesn't have to be blood. And Theon's kind of on board with most of it.
I think Lewin's been playing the whole time.
And not for the reasons, not for the reasons Lewin, at least for Bran and Rickon. Like, Lewin's trying to be like, what about your little ward brothers? He's like, fuck those 2. They weren't my brothers. Only Robb was my foster brothers. Yep. He said, yeah, foster.
Robb was the only one that was brotherly, but you're right. They are worth more alive than dead. So if I find them and they don't put up a fight, I'm not going to hurt them. And he's like, well, the reeds are worth a lot too. This is something Theon really hadn't thought of, but is a pretty good point by.
Yeah.
They do live right near where Moat Cailin is, which is where Victarion is. And Lewin's claiming that they could make Victarion stay at Moat Cailin very difficult if it weren't for these hostages that Theon could theoretically basically be like, hey, fuck with Victarion and your kids are dead.
And this is definitely, like I said, it's Lewin playing Theon. He's planting seeds of doubt, pretty much. Is kind of what he's doing here, right? He's like trying to, like, he's trying to make him think he's having his own ideas, kind of almost,
Yeah.
Well, and he's playing the Varys a little bit, I feel like. He's like, hey, if I give this guy good counsel, then I'm on his side, and he won't think, like, right now Theon has that, and I think you're right, he probably is accurate. He has this kind of like, oh, Lewin's still loyal to the Starks, not me, even though Mace was just supposed to be loyal to the Lord regardless. Theon still got this. He's still more loyal to the Starks than I am, which I don't think is incorrect
for sure.
But if Lewin's trying to get on that side of, hey, trust me, I'm your maester now, then this
but
is.
But Lewin is definitely, he's not. No, at the same time, right?
Yeah, he's talking out the side of his mouth.
Both sides of his mouth.
Yeah. He's like, and Hodor, he's just simple. Like, he didn't have any say.
He's helped you so many times.
Take care of your horse.
All he does is what he's told. They might have told him to do this. Here he is. He doesn't know any better.
Yeah. And he draws the line at
Osha. Maester's like, yep,
she
fuck
gave her word. Yeah. He never really liked her anyway.
All right. All right, you got her. Take her down.
I also think he knows that she can fend for herself, and he was probably involved in whatever plan they had schemed.
For sure. I'm just thinking in my head, like, if we're thinking about all these Bran chapters, right? Osha's like, oh, magic, giants, north of the wall. And Bran goes to Lewin's like, oh, Osha said. And he's like, oh my God, stop talking to Osha. None of that's right. It's all bullshit. So, like, maybe he is like, fucking kill her. I'm done with her. Filling the kid's head with nonsense. I don't think I think what you said is more likely. I just think it's making a joke.
So he's like, damn, all right, Lewin's giving me good counsel. Like, that's good shit. And he's like, man, I wish I had a tighter grip on the North. I wish Ned left his 2 daughters here because I'd marry Sansa in a heartbeat.
Well, before that, I think we get another delusional comment by him. Lewin thanks him for the mercy, and he's like, he thinks something about mercy. He's like, oh, mercy's a trap either way.
There's a bloody trap. Too much and they call you weak, too little and you're monstrous.
Yeah, but then what I think is delusional, he's like, Balon, what an idiot. All he thinks about is conquest. He never thinks about how you're going to hold it, right?
Yeah.
Like Theon just took Winterfell with no intention or idea of how he was going to hold it. Like Balon, it seems like, has a plan. If I take castles in the north and cut off the neck, they can't.
To be fair, he was like, Asha will be here in a hurry before anything bad could happen, and we'll have enough men to hold it.
I get it, but like he's basically pointing the finger at Balon for something I don't think Balon is guilty of. It seems like Balon's original strategy of take over the neck is basically how he's planning on holding it. If their army is probably thinking south and they can't get north,
he's probably thinking more of like their first rebellion.
Well, I guess that makes sense.
And you also said he thought Asha was going to be there pretty quick, right? But what we know is that it takes at least 2 weeks to get to Deepwood Mott. So he left a month as pretty quick, quote unquote.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's
he knew he would be here alone for at least that long.
Yeah.
Again, I don't think it's super important. Just one of the things that I think he's a little bit not on the money when he's thinking about this.
Oh yeah, he's got a massive head, massive ego, big head.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into Sansa part. Would marrying Sansa help him here?
I mean, I don't think it could hurt, right? Like, if it happened, I don't think the Northmen would be happy about it, right? Like, the Northmen weren't happy when Ramsay Bolton married Lady Hornwood, like, out of force. But, like, if somehow you can make it last for an extended period of time and consummate it, and, like, maybe it's
even
a way
if
to
you just solidified your voice through Sansa, like, all right, Sansa, like, you're gonna hold this town hall, like, this is what you're gonna say to these people, yada yada yada. It would be coming actually from a Stark, which could help.
But I just don't think Sansa would be on board with that unless he kind of gives her
like the
it's
Lannister
like, hey,
treatment
where
you're gonna say this or die.
Yeah.
Like, she's gonna say it.
Lannister treatment.
and if we know Sansa, she's trained to be a lady. She's gonna be a lady, you know.
Yeah.
All right, so through the woods further, they see a dead elk, where the hounds come up on maybe the scent of a dead elk, or they have a scent. They find the elk.
Yeah.
They come across an elk. You're good enough.
So they still have the scent of the wolves because they come up and see that the wolves tore this elk apart. And he makes a pretty good revelation. Like, I guess you could tell that nobody cut steaks off of, like, the good parts of the meat.
Yeah. Is it him that thinks that realizes that?
I think it's all in his mind. Yeah.
It was him. Yeah. He said no part of the animal has been butchered. Theon realized the wolves ate, but not the men. Which is a little weird because, like Jeff said, you cut the steaks off and then the wolves eat what's left. How do you know if they didn't cut the steaks off before the wolves ate?
I'm not sure, but like when I've gone hunting and we like quarter the animal, like you cut you don't like cut a meat, like you don't.
They're not quartering
cut
the
slices
animal.
off.
They're cutting.
But like I'm saying, like, if you're gonna take meat, an easy way to do it is cut off a whole leg. Right, cut it off at the hip joint or cut it off at the shoulder joint and just like carry that with you. And if that's not done,
it makes sense for sure.
But 2 16-ounce steaks is easier to carry than a giant elk egg.
What I'm saying is like a lot of those steaks come from legs, and I guess you're right. They don't have horses. I was thinking more like just rip off the thing, tie it to the horse, and who gives a fuck how much it weighs? Your horse is carrying it, but they don't have horses. So
what were you saying, Jeff?
Yeah. No, I was disagreeing with you. I was like, he was like saying that they are only taking steaks, which, I mean, I guess they would take a couple for, they got 6 people to feed.
Yeah, but 2 of them are children.
The other thing is maybe there's fur, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, they'll probably be able to ration out some steaks for a while. But
I'm just saying, a way you could tell that there was no people. Like, dogs don't really care about skinning it; they're gonna bite right through the fur. There's more fur all over, like stuck to the meat and stuff. But
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm sure it would be a lot easier to tell than, like, obviously, Nelson, you're a hunter. Like, you'd see a carcass that was eaten versus a hunter. I mean, if they took the time to skin it, we'd all be able to tell that.
But most carcasses I haven't seen like a fresh eaten carcass by like an animal. I've seen like you come across like deer skeletons that was killed, like months ago or whatever. But yeah, well, so I don't know. I'm not making any I'm not like Kyle said. I'm no expert hunter. I've been hunting several times, but
yeah. So they come across they say brook, which I guess is a stream.
Yeah, small stream,
it's a running stream. But then it sounds like it's a fucking river when they talk about like there being a current.
Well, it's swollen by recent rains. So like a brook is a small stream, but it's like expanded because it is riverish at this point. Creek.
Yeah, it sounds more like a river than a stream.
So they see the tracks going in, and Farland checks the other side, but does not see him coming out anywhere.
Yeah, and they've lost the scent. They don't have any scent of the of the wolves anymore. So the next big part of this chapter is them kind of walking up and down the stream till they try and find tracks, and then they don't find the tracks, and then they try and find the scent, and they don't find a scent.
Here's where Wex is smarter than him. He says like, "Hey man," well, he doesn't say shit, but he pretty much says like, "Hey man, yeah, there's no people prints here.
Look at my boot.
Like where are the footprints? I see paw prints, no footprints."
Joseph realizes what he's trying to say, says it, and they're like, damn, he's right. And Theon's like putting it together. He's like, oh, that makes sense why there wasn't any stakes cut off the elk. They must have sent the wolves on to lead us astray, and they doubled back or took a different path or whatever, right?
Well, and this is the part, they haven't started even walking up and down the stream yet. He thinks to himself, are these hunters playing me? Like, did they see other tracks and they just kept us on this? And he's like, what's going on? Like, don't play me false. And they're like, hey, like, we didn't do it. Like, this is the only track we have right now. Yeah. Like, I don't know what you're talking. Like, we're all lost here. So he sends some people to double back, some people across the river, I believe. And they're walking. Then they start walking up and down it to see anything, right?
Yep. Garrus Merch take 4 dogs back to find where they lost, along with Agar to watch them. Then he takes Wex, the Frey boy, Red Nose, to look upstream. Him and Wex on one side, Red Nose on the other, and Walder on the other. And Farland, and I guess everybody else, Poxy, Tim, whoever else, they all went south, down, or it doesn't say north or south. I assume upstream was north. He goes upstream, the other ones go downstream. Because, I don't know if they've already said it, but somebody basically says, like, even if the wolves did go away from Bran, like, they wouldn't go away from him forever. Like, they're going to come back. They'd go hunt, and then they're going back to him. So as long as we can pick up the wolves' tracks, that'll lead us to them eventually. So they send some people to try and go find out where they went, and this plan 2 is find the wolf tracks.
Yeah. So 1 horn if you get the track, 2 if you
see the wolf,
spot the beast.
Yeah.
All right. So no signs of the dire wolves leaving the stream.
Not watching anything. They see some animals and stuff. Walder kills a rabbit, but not good. And Theon's not liking it. He's thinking every hour they don't find him, it becomes less and less likely they find him. Just like missing child case.
It's like 40. The first 48. Like, have you ever seen that murder show? Like, we got a good shot at catching them here, but once it's hour 49, like, we're fine.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's what he's thinking, and he basically says, like, okay, it's too far. Like, it's time to turn back. Like, this plan's not going.
But he doesn't yet. He's like,
well, he's always like, he's lying to himself. He's like, it's just up over there. It's over there.
Yeah,
they'll be over here.
And he's like, how did Osha elude him with a cripple and a 4-year-old?
Yeah, he's getting pissed off. It's kind of embarrassing.
Yeah, and now he's like, man, if they do get away and they find anybody, like, no one's not going to take in these 2 guys, and the North is just going to rally around them. And we're fucked.
Any person except for the 13 Ironborn in Winterfell right now within 1,000 miles of here is going to do anything they can to help these kids if they come across them. So we need to get to them before anybody else.
Wait, that's all that's in Winterfell now is 13?
Well, I mean, Black Lauren said that there was, 9 on the walls. We have Black Lauren and Urzin.
I thought there was 30. He said he took it. He said he took it with 30.
He said 30, but then I guess he had two died. I mean, yeah, I guess just
28.
Yeah.
Let's say 28.
So okay,
they reconvene, and he's basically like, these hounds suck. Like they couldn't smell a wet fart if it was right in front of them.
Yeah, they're only good for bear bait.
But I was like, no, like these guys know these wolf scents. Like if there was a scent, we'd find it. So I think they start looking again, don't they? Like they're like, all right, like
well, they go
let's
back,
give it another try.
They go back and they find the hunters who had tried to find where Bran and Rickon split off from the wolves, right? Yeah. And they find those guys, and they're like, also nothing. Yeah, they went halfway back to Winterfell.
Let's go back to the stream.
Well, before this, they get into talk about like, so Walder says like, we're not going to find shit. They got the reeds with them. They got these Crannig men, these frog eaters. These frog eaters smell like bogs. The dogs can't smell them. They know secret shit. Like, and Theon's about to tell him, shut the fuck up. That's some old Nan stories. But Lewin's like, it's kind of right.
Yeah. They were people they were friends with the children of the forest before they broke off the neck. Like they might have some secrets.
Yeah. And again, this is kind of, if anything, this is, I think, the biggest evidence of what Kyle was saying earlier. Like, we know Lewin isn't big on magic stuff. Like, he was. He says that he was one of the few macers who studied that in the Citadel. But anytime Bran's come to him with, like, oh, this magic stuff, he's like, bullshit. That's not real. So I wonder, like, Walder's like, oh.
I mean, you even talked about it earlier, like, shut up, Osha.
Yeah, and Walder here's like, ooh, magic shit. And Lewin's like, yes, 100%.
That's what it is.
Like, is he just trying to fuck with Theon? That's what I thought when I first read this.
Yeah. Another thing that happens kind of just before this was they started thinking of like, which direction would the wolves actually have went? Like, it makes sense that the wolves would have went downstream. Like, they're not going to fight the current. They're not going to fight.
I haven't seen a wolf. Yeah, Reek says like, I don't know a wolf to run upstream.
And he was like, a man might if he knew he was being hunted. You know, it's kind of like,
but not a wolf.
I think they do that in the Hunger Games. I think Katniss walks upstream.
What's interesting is Theon even says like, these aren't normal wolves though.
I don't know if it matters. I think he said run up a stream bed, just like running in the water for miles. Like, why would it just be in the water for miles? It doesn't matter what direction.
Yeah.
Either way, I took it more what Jeff was saying, but either way, yeah.
Well, even if you were going to go for miles, you're going to go downstream, right? You're just going to not fight it.
Yeah.
But yeah. All right. So they go back and they search for a while, and it's starting to get dark. And Joseph is like, "Come on, man! Like we lost. You're not getting them. Like this is fruitless." And Lewin, he's like, yeah, like, come on, we're gonna lose a horse here or something like that, and it's not gonna go well. And they are like, I think they went far enough. Like, it's described as them like they've got to like go in the water and like try and climb around and get off their horses. Like, it's not an easy trek to follow.
He says they've gone miles downstream. Like, and the one thing you're talking about is there's a part where there's like a dam that has filled it up, and he's like, these wolves would have had to swim across this like pool in order to not get out of the water here, and we can tell they didn't get out because there's no tracks. Like. And that's when he's like, I'm going to fucking drown them. He's like, they're going to get their share of swimming. When I drown these, when I catch them, I'm going to fucking drown them. I'll let them swim all they want. So, like, and earlier again, at some point, he's like, I'm going to fucking skin them. So he's getting fed up by these wolves. He's chasing them all over the place today. But yeah, they're like, basically sun goes down and he's like, fuck, like, I'm not going to get these guys. But he keeps going just because he's like, I can't go back. Like, that's not an option.
Yeah. I mean, that's like admitting defeat. You know, he's like, I'm not going to be made the fool by a cripple and a 4-year-old and
he'd be the laughingstock of the North and his family, basically. So he's like, that's not happening. And this is where Reek's got some ideas. He basically says, I don't know where they're at. I know where they're at. They never came this way at all. They probably went northeast to last
He went to the Umbers.
Yeah, they're good Stark men. He's like, they would have needed shelter on the way. And there's this old mill I stopped at after they captured me on the way back. They got some grain from the miller's wife or whatever. They're probably there. And he's like, why the fuck do you think they're there? There's a bunch of other places they could be. And he's like, I just know. And Theon's like, fuck it. Fuck this bullshit. Like, half-assed answers. How the fuck do you know?
How do you know? Like, by the way, I did bang that girl out. I did bang out this wife too. But.
Yeah. He banged the miller's wife too, right? And he basically tells him to come look in his bag, right?
Yeah. The sack comes back up, the bursting sack.
Yeah, I don't think we mentioned it, but when everyone's getting ready and they're talking about all their weapons, one of the things Reek has is his big bag with him.
It's just a lumpy sack, yeah. Yeah, and this is what I don't know if you're going to cut it or not, but at the beginning I said I think I'm going to get this prediction at the end completely wrong because I feel like I should know it. And this is probably the one that I'm going to be most embarrassed by not getting, I feel like, and it's also one of the ones that I'm more excited to find the answer to. I don't know why.
This is one of the most You're making me really excited to hear your prediction.
I will say, I think you think this is an easy one that you should get. I don't think this is super easy. I think it's very clearly there's something weird happening here, but I don't think it's supposed to be super easy to, like, I don't think anybody really would.
Okay, well, Theon figures it out in 2 seconds, so it felt like I was supposed to figure it out in 2 seconds.
Well, we've been talking about what a great a commander Theon is.
Theon's a smart lord, so.
Well, so he reaches in, finds soft fur, rough, scratchy wool, and a sharp point, which is the pin part of a wolf's head brooch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, pretty much, he sees the brooch, so he says, Gilmore, Agar, Rednose, so all his men go with him, pretty much, right?
Yep.
Everybody else go back to Winterfell. You're no longer needed. I know where they're at.
Yep.
Lewin's like, remember the mercy thing? Like, please don't kill my kids that I'm in charge of here. Like, that won't go over well. And he said, well, fuck that. Mercy was for this morning. Now they've pissed me off. Nelson's quote, it is better be feared than laughed at. I don't know if he's puffing his chest here, but it kind of feels like it at the same time. But, I mean, he's definitely scaring Lewin a little.
All right, prediction time. I'm ready.
Now that you've made this sound like I shouldn't get it.
I just don't. I felt like you. I just felt that you thought that like this was something super easy. And I don't think this is immediately obvious.
My first prediction for Dunk and Egg was the farthest thing. Actually, my first prediction was pretty lame. My second prediction, I went ham on, and I wasn't anywhere close. But at least I had fun making it. So,
there's two possibilities, and the one I thought of like at the beginning of us actually talking about it here. So I think my actual possibility is that so these are Stark clothes, pretty much.
Seems like it.
Yes. Yeah. Or at least it was clothes and then they have a pin. You know? They at least have a wolf head pin.
It feels like fur and wool, right? Besides the pin is what he feels is fur and wool.
Yeah. So either Reek helped them and is now betraying them, which doesn't make more sense now that we're kind of talking about it, especially with Jojen's prediction that Reek's going to kill him.
That's true. So Reek did. Should we read that? You want me to read that dream real quick?
You don't have to.
Okay.
I mean, we know what it is. He pretty much says, yeah, this creepy, stinky dude's going to kill you. And then he's like, I didn't know who it was yesterday, but now I know. It's Reek because he showed up, right?
Yeah.
So I don't see why he would help them escape other than to betray them. But, I mean, he was kind of in the same boat as Osha, sorry. I screwed it up. Where they both, pledged loyalty to the new king, lord, trying to save themselves. So, I mean, maybe Osha thought he was on their side. I think she's smarter than that.
Gotcha. You're saying that, like, he teamed up with Osha, like, hey, we're both prisoners here. We're not really on his side. And that's how that team up happened?
Yeah. I guess the other thing, and I don't know how there's a part in the middle here that I don't understand, I guess, of this prediction that I'm going to make. But it's essentially that they're going to, dress as Starks and go here and try and claim these children back, and that Reek obviously knows something that he shouldn't or has no other way of knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why he's leading them there. And like I said, then they're going to use this disguise to kind of lure the kids back, or lure the people into giving the kids back at the very least.
All right. I don't hate that.
But I don't know if those are either those predictions.
I think that makes sense. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one's definitely a prediction. I think they're both actually predictions. I think you got two predictable options there.
Well, I'll just leave it at that then. I did just look ahead because I was wondering when we would see the next Theon. It's not for like 5 chapters or something like that. So I got a month or so.
Is there a brand there?
No. It's like Jon.
Oh, wow.
Sansa, Jon, Theon, Tyrion, or not Theon, Catelyn, Tyrion, Theon, something like that.
Well,
so it's going to be a little bit.
It'll be a while. Be a month or two for us, but maybe we'll get a couple 2-week records in, make it a little faster.
Yeah.
But good chapter. We'll see. Yeah, we'll see Kyle in the next chapter. We'll see the rest of you guys in the spoiler section. Thanks for listening.
All right. Bye, Kyle.
All right. Later, nerds.
Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Spoiler alert! Bye, Kyle. See you later. Thanks for hanging out with us. Now, boys, on to the spoiler section of Theon 4. What are your hot takes?
Okay, so I don't hate Kyle's prediction, but it's wrong.
It's wrong, but he's kind of on it. Like, I didn't even think about like
he's thinking.
He's thinking about like the Reek vision, and I didn't even think about the Reek vision, obviously because I already know what happens. But
I think if he would have let me read the Reek vision, he might have had a better shot.
He maybe would have had a shot at pulling out that it's because they're carving off the faces of the kids.
Skinning the faces. It's not just killing. It's the bodies are laid like he's let me read it quick.
He didn't really think of, and again, it's super hard. How could you use Stark clothes without?
Well, I think the key is realizing that Stark clothes, because Bran, like we've heard like many times if you look at the rendition I had the artist do of Bran, he's got this brooch on because Bran wears it so much. Like this is a Bran thing. Anytime he's like, I have to look lordly, brooch goes on.
For sure.
So like if you've been paying attention, this is a Bran thing. I don't think Kyle realized that. I think he just put together wolf head. You know what I mean?
Even if it's not Bran and it's Rickon's brooch, like if you're not a Stark person, you're not wearing their brooch. But I guess, yes, they've mentioned every time he's gotten in his lordly dress, it's been, and he's had a wolf brooch.
What I'm saying, I think Kyle made a really good connection by realizing that this is Stark gear.
Yeah.
I think a better connection is realizing this is Bran's clothing. Right, this is actually Bran stuff. That's kind of what helps you make that final leap too.
Yeah, the problem was he was thinking of like, how is Theon going to wear this clothes to then get Reek?
Exactly, and again, it's not like Wolf's Head brooch. Even if you realize that's Bran's thing, that doesn't necessarily mean the rest of the clothes in there are Bran's. But I think it helps you make that jump. Again, it's hard. It's really hard to put yourself in the perspective of a first time read through, right? It's so hard to.
Yeah, I mean, I was there with Dunk and Egg, and we asked him to make a prediction once a week, and
I'm just saying, like me and you now, it's so hard for me to think what would I be thinking about this, right? Because I'd seen the show, right, and in the show, there's no Reek pretend to be Ramsay. This is. So the character that plays Dagmar Cleftjaw in the show is just a tall guy with brown hair. He doesn't have a fucked up jaw or anything. He's just a tall guy with black hair. He's with Theon at Winterfell the whole time. He's basically the one like, no, you have to kill Roderick or whatever when he speaks out, right?
Yeah.
That character is who's supposed to be Dagmar. He's the one that tells Theon, to kill the boys or whatever. And again, I think another thing that really helps you make the real connection. So again, what happens is Theon kills two Miller's children, burns their bodies so that they're unrecognizable, and dresses them in Stark clothing. Then burns them, I think. But,
which again, like it didn't really matter whose clothes it was. They're gonna be burned, but the brooch doesn't get burned.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean it's definitely super hard. And I just try to think back to when I was actually reading this, like I probably read a chapter, and usually I read like before bed, so like I'm tired and like read a chapter, shut the book, go to bed, don't really dwell on it because I know I'm going to read and find out the solution soon.
Yeah, this is one of those chapters though that like I bet you if Kyle didn't have to wait, right, if he wasn't doing this podcast, I bet you like if he's interested enough to check when the next Theon chapter is, he might be interested enough to power through 5 more chapters to get to Theon.
He would. No, for sure. And that's like the other thing. Like because of this book being set up differently, where even if you wanted to keep reading, you still won't find out for 5 more chapters. Like any other book, most likely, with exceptions, I'm sure. I mean, the Prince of Thorns book would be an exception because you might go back 4 years. But like Harry Potter,
pretty linear.
The next chapter, you're going to figure out what happened or what's supposed to happen. It's
the other thing is too, which is kind of like it hurts Kyle, is he's. Like we're saying, his prediction's good. He's like very close to
his first prediction's way better than his second prediction. Like Reek betraying them because he's gonna kill them. Like
what was the second prediction?
They're gonna wear the clothes to go to the mill, and
I think those were the same prediction. I think like Reek's betraying them, and that's why that's why Reek's betraying them is how he knows. Yeah, that's how he knows where they're at, and the clothes is how they're gonna get at him.
But yeah, if he would have realized like. Theon figured again, like it's maybe a little bit unrealistic that Theon figured it out real quick that he's going to go to the mill house and burn 2 kids. Like,
well, hold on. So the thing is, the other point of that is that I was going to say earlier was they do mention that the Miller has children.
They mentioned the wife for sure. I don't remember them mentioning 2 children.
No, there's a very short sentence, and I didn't bring it up in the podcast on purpose, but there's like half a sentence. Let me see. You know that old mill sitting lonely on the acorn water. We stopped there when I was being dragged to Winterfell a captive. The miller's wife sold us hay for our horses while that old knight clucked over her brats.
Oh.
So, like, while Roderick, like, toyed with the brats,
I didn't even pick up as that being kids.
I was looking for any mention of kids because I was wondering if Kyle was going to have that hint, and he barely slides it in there, right?
It's a super tight, yeah.
So what we're going to get into for sure in this spoiler section is that one of these kids might be Theon's, right? He fucks the wife. One of these kids is about Rickon's age, which means he's young. There's a very good chance one of these kids is Theon's, and people call him Kinslayer many times later on. He always takes it as like Bran and Rickon were actually my brothers. Like people think he killed Bran and Rickon, and when they call him Kinslayer, they're saying basically they were your brothers. You killed your brothers in that sense. Yeah. But a lot of theories are around. George is very heavily implying that he killed his own child here. So I'm going to bring this up in the next chapter because it's back to back with this one. There's a ton of parallels between this chapter and the next chapter, which is Jon, when Jon captures Ygritte. Jon captures Ygritte. Ygritte tells Jon the story of Bael the Bard. Bael the Bard does the whole take the daughter of Winterfell, right? So he does something in Winterfell to impress the Lord Stark. Lord Stark says, "I'll give you any gift that I can give you," and he asks for a winter rose from the gardens, which is a really rare blue flower. He gives it to him. The next morning, Lord Stark wakes up. His daughter's gone, and on her pillow is this blue flower. Jon asks Ygritte, so he ran away and escaped. And Ygritte says, they didn't go anywhere. They were hiding in the crypts the whole time, right? It's exactly what Bran does.
Kyle, that's next chapter.
That's next chapter.
Yeah.
So after that, when the daughters return, she's pregnant. That child grows up to be the Lord of Winterfell. And he knows... And I think he goes out and kills Bael the Bard. Like there's a fight between the wildlings and the Northmen, and he kills Bael the Bard because he's the king beyond the wall.
Right.
He never knew Bael the Bard was his father. And Ygritte says gods punished kinslayers even when they kinslay unknowingly. Right. So if Theon kills his sons here.
Yeah.
What happens to Theon after this fucking chapter? Yeah, everything goes immediately. The steepest downhill.
The worst storyline of
his storyline falls worse than the stock market's falling right now, right? Like just absolute bottoms out. Like horrible experience from Theon. Is that the gods punishing him for kinslaying unknowingly? Who knows? But there's a lot of fucking parallels. And
I like that story a lot more than.
And people call him out for it a lot later on. Like they're like, "You're a kinslayer," and he's like, "No, I was a Greyjoy. I was never a Stark." But like, is the reason that George calls him a kinslayer 10 more times throughout the series because he actually is a kinslayer unknowingly? And again, we get that parallel with the whole next chapter.
Yeah. I would like if when he's just bringing these bodies back, right? They're already burned. He's hanging them up in his next chapter.
Yep.
Like if he made a mention of one boy had a lighter brown curly hair, I mean, maybe that's too obvious. Obviously, people maybe picked up. I mean, he says he banged the wife and they had 2 kids. So, it's not crazy to think that one kid could be his. But
so
it's also crazy. It's also crazy that it's not his kid at all. Banging one time,
Well, you even said. I think you brought it up. I don't even know if I realized it, but I think you said it in the podcast. He bangs this woman, and it's more than one time. He says I tumbled her a few times. So, which gives it even more possibility. And again, he has to kill 2 children, a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. 4 is not that old. If Tyrion's banging, like you said, if he's banging, the brewer's wife at 14, she's his first. It's not crazy that. But one of the things I was going to say earlier, it's tough for Kyle because, like I'm saying, these back-to-back chapters, I think, are meant to parallel each other for sure.
Yeah.
And when you have to wait a week, it's hard to make those connections. Yeah. And what I was saying earlier is Kyle's making a pretty good prediction here. I think if he would read the next Theon chapter right now, and like you're saying, it starts with dead bodies. Oh, there's the wolf head brooch on this body. I think Kyle puts that together like this. Oh, he just burned some random kids.
Yeah, but that's the next Theon chapter, not the next.
I'm saying he could read that if he's a normal person, he reads that tomorrow, right? Yeah. Maybe or tonight. Yeah. He's going to read that in a month. Is he even though he made a really good prediction, he might not be able to put that together just because it's been so long at that point. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to give Kyle some leniency if he does make because sometimes he'll make a good prediction and then the next chapter or the next time we see that same character, he'll follow it up with a bad one. And just because I'm sure it's tough to do it that way.
Yeah. How did they do it in the show? Did we know that they were in the crypts before he burns the bodies?
No.
So they leave it as a spoiler?
Yeah, in this, I think Bran is the very last chapter in this book, or one of the last ones. So, basically, we get 1 or 2 more Theon chapters, We get Theon basically getting captured by Ramsay before we get another Bran chapter. Like, Theon loses Winterfell. Winterfell gets burned. Yeah. Before Bran comes out of there. Right. And we know he's alive. So again, like, if it's been a while, like, Kyle's close. But if he drifts by the next one, he's gonna keep drifting, because when you don't get a mention of Bran, or like, you expect him to show up. Like, okay, he's gonna show up next time. And he just keeps not showing up. He's
gonna check forward to see a Bran chapter. And he's going to see that there's a Bran chapter.
Well, I think we've told Kyle not to read ahead, like, or scan ahead like that before, but
I mean, he just did it. Yeah,
I know. We have to remind him soon. I didn't want to tell him right then, because then it's obvious that there's something coming. But
yeah, it's definitely something I would do. Like,
yeah, I did it all the time too. But like, maybe next chapter we'll be like, hey Kyle, I remember you said you read ahead. Like, we should don't do that anymore.
So I want to know, and I completely forget. What did they do with the tracks? What's the secret?
They never leave Winterfell, right? So,
but they did leave Winterfell, though.
So my guess is they literally walked through the mud into the pine needles, right? Theon says they can see their tracks right away because it's through the mud. But then they get into the forest, and there's pine needles and leaves, and it's way harder to follow. And basically the dogs are just going on scent at that point. So I literally think they walked like 50 yards out of Winterfell into the forest in the leaves, and then turned back around. And then the wolves kept going.
So, like, where is the Sept? Like, I don't know if you'll be able to. Is the Sept back inside, or is it outside?
What do you mean the Sept?
Not the Sept, the crypts.
Inside.
So they walked back into the wall.
Yes. Past the dead bodies.
So when they go to leave the crypts, is nobody there because it was burning?
Exactly. Like, Osha tries to open the door and can't, and Hodor has to, like, use all his force to get the door to the crypts open, because there's, like, burned timber blocking the door.
And the Boltons didn't leave any men there to, like... Nope.
They burned it and dipped. And they come out and they think, like, oh, this was the Greyjoys must have just burned the castle and left, but then they see dead Greyjoys. And they're like, wait a minute, this couldn't have been the Greyjoys.
So, I wanted the Reeds to have some kind of, like, they strapped big sentinel leaves to their fucking feet and walked across the mud into the crypts. I don't think
there's any crazy Reed stuff.
Because I thought the crypts were, like, kind of like another, like, not maybe inside the walls, like they were.
The entrance is inside the walls. It's in the old graveyard near the old keep, which is like when I'm saying this, I'm going off. I think the Minecraft, again, this sounds super nerdy. We're talking about Game of Thrones already. I'm talking about the Minecraft recreation of it, but the fucking recreation they do is really good in that, right? They literally have it set up so that it makes sense how Bran could climb out. Like, if you go to the Godswood, you can climb over that sentinel that's leaning up against the wall, climb across the roof of the armory, swing from gargoyle to gargoyle. Like, they have it set up so that everything that's ever mentioned in the books makes sense with the layout. You can cross the covered bridge to go from here to here that's ever mentioned, right? And they have it inside the walls, not too far from the Godswood. They say it's near the old keep, which is basically like where the great, like the original Winterfell was eventually expanded upon. And the original old keep isn't really used anymore. And that's where the entrance to the crypts is. It's over there. It's in a part of the castle they don't really use anymore.
I kind of want you to show me this later. But so like Lewin's part of this. Is it Lewin's plan?
Lewin is not part of this at all. That I'm aware of. Lewin has no idea. So Lewin basically gets stabbed. When the castle gets taken, I think Ramsay stabs him, and then he crawls to the Winterfell heart tree. When Bran and them come out, they go and talk to Lewin there, just like in the show. And he's like, oh my God, you guys are alive. Like, I didn't know that. Right.
Wait, what happened? What happens? They come out of the crypts?
After Winterfell's burned.
Oh.
So when the burning of Winterfell happened.
Yeah, but it's different in the show because the Boltons don't leave, right?
They do. They burn Winterfell and leave.
Yeah. I think that's stupid of them. But.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I thought Lewin bailed to the crypts with them in the show.
No, he dies in the show, and under the god, like, he asks Osha to stay and kill him. Right.
Gotcha.
It's a really good scene, the one where Lewin's dying.
I'll have to go back and watch that.
What's really awesome in the books is we find out in book 4 or 5, right, when Davos gets to White Harbor, he meets with the Manderleys. The Manderleys know that Rickon's alive. Do you know how the Manderleys know this?
Osha took him there.
Osha took him to Skagos. And they know he's at Skagos.
I don't remember.
Wex. 12-year-old boy, clever Wex. When all this shit goes down and the Ironborn get betrayed, he hides in the Godswood climbs up into the leaves of the heart tree. Lewin's dying underneath the heart tree and tells Osha, take these kids away and make sure the princes aren't together. He sneaks down because Lewin dies and he follows Osha, follows him with Rickon the whole way till basically she leaves till she takes a boat off island, and he's like, fuck this, and gets captured, or he gets captured by White Harbor men. Problem is, White Harbor men, we got a deaf Wex who knows a ton of information. So they're like teaching him how to talk, and they're like playing charades with Wex to get this information out of him. And that's how Davos gets sent to Skagos, is all because Wex knows this because he's hiding in the fucking gods in the heart tree.
Wow, I didn't know that at all. Like, I don't remember this at all.
Yeah. Like, that doesn't happen in the show. Like, well, like everything.
I mean,
happens
Wex
in the
doesn't
show,
even exist.
Just Wex doesn't exist, exactly. But I think that's super cool. And again, that's something that George probably just didn't mention Wex in the chapter where Theon died, or where all that shit happens. And in book 4, he's like, how the fuck can I get Wyman Manderly to know this?
So it's 2 books. It's 2 books later that
2 books later, Wex just shows up again.
Wex shows up again.
It might be 3 books.
That could be something where he's like, all right, how the fuck do I?
So it could be like him just like being super clever and being like, oh, Wex is a character who could still be alive. Let me think of a story for him. But on the other hand, Wex is a super fucking smart 12-year-old mute boy.
Yeah.
Like, it seems like he could be made for that role, right? Like, if you're trying to get a character who's an interesting conveyor of this information in a weird way.
But then again,
super clever 12-year-old mute boy is a really cool way to do it. So it kind of makes me think George had it all planned.
But then again, if you're Wex, why are you following Rickon? To like what point? Like, whose side are you trying? Who are you trying to appease now?
Maybe just because you know he's valuable, and when you find out that Bran's going north of the wall and Rickon's not, you're like, "Fuck, I'm not going north of the wall. Let me follow the other valuable one," because that could lead to something informational. I don't know. Maybe they explained it better than I remember in the in that Manderly chapter. But
I feel like it's very poor by the wolves that they don't sense smell Wex is following them. That's really interesting, though.
So one thing I thought was interesting is when Reek says wolves wouldn't run. I've never known a wolf to run upstream through water.
Yeah, but a man would if it was being hunted. I thought it was interesting too because Bran was warging.
Exactly. You could put Bran's mind, a man's mind, inside a wolf's body and do this because there's still a mystery.
Yeah, I said that line because I thought Kyle would be like, "Oh yeah, Bran's warging him,"
and that's the first thing I thought too. So one thing is Bran doesn't really seem to have very much control at all of Summer when he wargs him, right? Mm-hmm. Like in the last time, like he's getting whispers of like, oh, there's a sentinel across the Godswood. The next Bran chapter we get, which is I think one of the last chapters of this thing, Bran is like Summer 100%, right? There's been like almost a 180 shift in how good Bran is at warging Summer. And a lot of people say it's because he's been trapped in the black. He literally is in like a sensory deprivation, right? They think that enhances your warg abilities.
I can see that being true.
When
it's like Bran, being deaf or being blind.
Yeah,
you know,
when the next Bran chapter starts, he is in Summer, and when he wakes up, he asks Jojen how long he's been like warging for, and Jojen says 3 days. When next time we see Bran, he's been warging Summer for 3 days straight.
And that's where he's like, "Yo, you're gonna die if you don't start eating and stuff."
Exactly. He's like, "I was eating when you woke me up," and he's like, "No, Summer was eating, not you." Right? Yeah.
Yeah, I actually think him in the Godswood, it was him, and I might have said differently last Bran chapter. I think it was him, and I think it was his conscious whispering to Summer.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know what I said either, but it makes sense like with the progression of Bran, right? Like he doesn't have very much control at all over Summer yet, and I think it's meant to be like he gets that very soon.
He's starting to, so he definitely was inside. And it's also super. I'm like, I don't think Bran's this clever as a young kid, but like, did Osha be like, hey, like, then go upstream? Like, but okay, at some point there would be tracks. Like, it seems like they looked for a long time. But like, where are these wolf tracks?
So when they first go there, you're right. They look for a long time both times, right? But we talked about this. They go to the stream. He sends some men back, and then they're split into 2 parties. One goes upstream, one goes downstream. He gives up after a little while. They talk again, and then they all go downstream for miles. So if they went miles upstream, maybe that's how they did it, right? But there is a mystery of where the fuck did these wolves go?
Yeah.
Right? Like Bran, sure, everybody else is back in the castle, but how did these wolves get away? Like, how did these wolves get away?
Even at some point, like, there's got to be tracks back inside. right?
I guess who knows how they did that? That might be some Mirror Reed, Jojin Reed,
like from whatever
shit.
path they made their way back. Like they've got to have,
unless you walk backwards,
unless they stepped right back in. Yeah, they have to walk backwards. You never done
that? Like it's been snowed out. You try to walk exactly in your footsteps.
Yeah, not a wolf, and I don't have 4 feet.
But the wolves wouldn't. I'm not saying you're saying. Hold on, I thought you meant like OSHA.
Are the wolves?
Hodor
Are the wolves in the crypt?
No.
Are the wolves in the?
No.
Okay.
So
okay.
that was one of my other.
That's
points.
what I thought the wolves were in the crypt.
Gotcha.
But
that's one of my other points. Is Gareth says the wolves wouldn't leave the boys for very long. They fucking do. They leave the boys for like a month here, maybe 2 months.
And we know Ghost leaves John for
Ghost is north of the wall for a long time after John goes south of the wall, right? One other thing, and this is going to be a weird one. So the pink letter. One of the big things about the pink letter.
Where do we talk about the pink letter? That's a Ramsay thing, right?
The pink letter is the letter that John gets, and the big question about the pink letter is who sent it, right? The letter that John gets, it says like I want my reek back. Like it's written as if it's Ramsay. A lot of people think Ramsay didn't write it though. I think.
Why would he write that John about reek? What's he mean?
It's a letter that John gets mad about. He's like, I have your sister, or like, I want my reek back. Like I found Mance Rayder. I've hung all his spear wives. Hold on, I'll pull it up. I'll read it.
Yeah, you got to give me some context of when this letter gets to John. And
it's the very last John chapter. He gets this letter. He's like, I have to go south to Winterfell now, and all his men kill him because he's basically deserting. It's the very last John chapter, the pink letter.
But Sansa's not there, right? It's not about Sansa.
I'll read it. Your false king is dead, bastard. He and all his host were smashed in 7 days of battle. I have his magic sword. Tell his red whore. Your false king's friends are dead, their heads upon the walls of Winterfell. Come and see them, bastard. Your false king lied, and so did you. You told the world you burned the king beyond the wall. Instead, you sent him to Winterfell to steal my bride from me. I will have my bride back. If you want Mance Rayder back, come and get him. I have him in a cage for all the north to see. Proof of your lies. The cage is cold, but I have made him a warm cloak from the skins of the 6 whores who came with him to Winterfell. I want my bride back. With the false king's queen, I want his daughters and his red witch. I want this wildling princess. I want his little prince, the wildling babe. I want my reek. Send them to me, bastard, and I will not trouble you or your black crows. Keep them from me, and I will cut out your bastard heart and eat it. Ramsay Bolton, true-born lord of Winterfell. So a lot of people think that this is not Ramsay and this is Stannis or Mance trying to piss John off to get him to come south, right? Why would Ramsay want John to come south?
There's a lot to unpack in that letter.
This is one of the huge theories. I'm not trying to cover a lot here. One of the big evidences that people think that used in this letter is they say that they think it's Mance Rayder because there's not a single name in this. Every other name is like a nickname for somebody. Right? Your false king is dead.
Bastard.
Your false king's friends are dead. I want my reek. The king be on the wall.
Hold on, though. My big question is there's only one person that calls somebody reek, and that is, like, how would Mance know that Ramsay calls a person reek?
Well, he meets Theon. The Spearwives talk to Theon when they're in Winterfell. Just hang on. So he says, I want my bride back. The false king's queen. I want his daughter and his red witch. There's not a single name except for Mance Rayder. People use this as evidence to think that it's a secret way of Mance telling, because Tormund reads the letter as well, telling Tormund or something, or telling John. People think that the fact that Mance is the only actual name and everybody else is like a euphemism, it means that it's Mance wrote it. But, so here, in this chapter, when Theon asks Reek who's missing, 6, Reek stepped up behind him, smelling of soap, his long hair moving in the wind. Both Starks, the bog boy and his sister, the half-wit from the stables, and your wildling woman. He describes all of these people with euphemisms. And Ramsay does. Right? So Ramsay here is not using anybody's name. I mean, he says the Starks, which is close. But then he says that bog boy and her sister, right? Just like your false king's queen and his daughter and the red whore.
Yeah. But he says the Starks by name. Like,
he says the Starks, right? And he says the king be on the wall and the false king. He doesn't say Brandon and Rickon. He says both Starks.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying that's just a point that he did, right? Like he would use.
He might have been the one who wrote the pink letter. The euphemisms might not need. Yeah, because we've seen him do this before. Again, and I think if you probably pressed me to it and you had to ask me about the pink letter, I would probably have a more crazy theory. Because I just like crazy theories. I think they're more interesting. So I think probably it's like Stannis or Lady Dustin Again, I have reason for the evidence, but I read a theory.
Why would Stannis want Jon to leave the wall though?
Stannis needs fucking help. Stannis and Mance Rayder are trying to take over Winterfell basically, and they need help. Jon has wildlings. It's
been so long since I've read them too.
I think Theon is such a well-written character. I was never a huge fan of Theon chapters before we did this podcast. Reading these chapters now, like it's so easy when you're reading quick to just be like, what a dickhead.
He's Joffrey-ish. Like you get into his head and there's a whole different layer than what's actually on the surface.
But there's reasons for it for Theon. Like it's hard, like when you really think about it, and like if you put yourself in Theon's shoes, like you would hope that you're not as bad as Theon, but like what he is trying to prove to his fan, like where does he belong in the world?
Yeah, no, I mean he's very pride is a I don't know what the saying
Joffrey's an asshole for like he's cruel for cruelty's sake. Like Theon, he's trying to do his best. He's very delusional, right? I'm not saying he's the best guy. For sure, he's not the best guy. But like he's such an interesting character. Like George always says, it's about great characters. Like the best thing is he quotes this. I don't know who actually Robert Jordan. I think he did in some commencement speech. Says the only thing worth writing about is the human heart and the conflict with itself, right? When people ask him if he writes sci-fi or fantasy, he says it doesn't matter. It's all the fucking same thing. The only thing worth writing about is the human heart and conflict with itself. And I think Theon is a fucking. I mean, all the characters eventually get to this point where they're like just so conflicted between like everything. Right? Tyrion gets there like when the trial for Joffrey happens, and everybody Tyrion's like borderline there the whole time. That's about to happen to the cat when she gets this news about her sons and she lets Jaime go. And she sends Jaime. Sounds so stupid, but if you really think about it,
that's what makes her send Jaime off.
Yeah, and if you really think about it, like yes, Cat, you're a bitch, but like if you put yourself in Cat's shoes, like the only chance she has of keeping her children alive at this point are Sansa and Arya, and she has this ticket. That
I gave Sansa or Cat. I'm not backtracking.
Again, I'm not saying Theon's a good guy either, but like when you really think about it, like George is so good about like making these characters like
have a reason,
such a fucking conflict that like they have to do. The reason they do something stupid is because like it's not that Theon's not killing these Miller's boys. He's a dickhead. I mean, he is a dickhead, and that plays a part of why he kills these Miller's boys. But there's a fucking driving factor to it, right? And it just makes it so fucking good.
Yeah, for sure. I don't really have any hot takes other than the upstream thing. Like I definitely had. Oh wait, I do have one more thing. We have another mention of one horn, two horns. Do you remember we talked about that a couple times?
Yes. I was thinking about this too. I actually don't know if I wrote that in my notes, but I have this too.
One horn if they get the track, two if they're actually spotted. So that's kind of like two if you actually see a wildling.
Right. So one is Rangers returning. So one's a good thing, two is a bad thing. Tracks are a good thing, right? Because you're on their trail. But if you actually see a dire wolf, you're probably fucked, right? Especially because they split up into groups of 4, right? Theon takes all these men and dogs so that if they find these people, they're against it. But then he splits up. Like if it's Theon and Wex versus Summer and Shaggy,
you lost that battle.
You
lose that battle 10 times out of 10.
So.
And I'm a tuna, and I'm a grown tuna.
We'll develop.
You want to in my territory?
Develop breathing apparatus. We will hunt you. 300-pound tuna.
You lose that battle.
You lose that battle 9 times.
That's a great scene too.
So the last thing I had, again, kind of a weird parallel, and again, it's kind of because Ramsay's in the middle of it again. So when Theon talks to, there's a point where Theon talks to Roose about like Ramsay's origin.
About the beginning of the Flay. I think he thinks about
Well, no, where Ramsay came from. Like how this bastard come to be.
When was this?
So here's the quote. Basically,
in this chapter?
No. This isn't a big chapter, but listen to the story that Roose tells. Okay. Yeah, he basically asked, like, Roose asked, like, did you know the story? Yes, you met his mother whilst out riding and were smitten by her beauty. Is what Ramsay had told Reek about where Ramsay came from, right? Why he's a bastard. He just saw this woman and was smitten.
So this is in the future.
Yep. Yeah, like once Bolton comes back north.
Yeah.
Smitten, Bolton laughed. Did he use that word? Why, the poor boy has a singer's soul, though if you believe that song, you may well be dimmer than the first Reek. Even the riding part is wrong. I was hunting a fox along the weeping water when I chanced upon a mill and saw a young woman washing clothes in the stream. The old miller had gotten himself a new young wife, a girl not half his age. She was a tall, willowy creature, very healthy looking, long legs, small, firm breasts, like 2 ripe plums. Pretty in a common sort of way. The moment I had set eyes on her, I wanted her. Such was my due. The Macers will tell you that King Jaehaerys abolished the Lord's right to the first knight to appease his shrewish queen, but where the old gods rule, old customs linger. The Umbers keep to the first night too, deny it as they may. Certain mountain clans as well. And on Skagos, well, only heart trees ever see half of what they do on Skagos. The miller's marriage had been performed without my leave or knowledge. The man had cheated me, so I had him hanged, and claimed my rights beneath the tree where he was swinging. If truth be told, the wench was hardly worth the rope. The fox escaped me as well, and on our way back to the Dreadfort, my favorite courser came up lame, so all in all, it was a dismal day. Later that year, the same wench had the impudence to turn up the Dreadfort with a squalling, red-faced monster she claimed was my own get. I should have had the mother whipped and thrown the child down a well, but the babe did have my eyes. She told me that when her dead husband's brother saw those eyes, he beat her bloody and drove her from the mill. That annoyed me, so I gave her the mill, and had the brother's tongue cut out to make certain he did not go running to Winterfell with tales that might disturb Lord Rickard. Each year I sent the woman some piglets and chickens and a bag of stars on the understanding that she was never to tell the boy who fathered him. A peaceful land, a quiet people, that has always been my rule. She eventually comes and brings him back, right? I just think it's interesting how this story of how Ramsay was made is his dad is out hunting a fox along a river and then goes to a mill and fucks the miller's wife.
And Theon's already fucked the miller's wife.
Theon's fucked the miller's wife. They're hunting a wolf along a river, and Reek's like, let's go to this mill. Again, I don't know what the fuck that means, if it was on purpose at all. I just think it's a really weird connection.
I think if anything, it points to it being Theon's kid.
I'm wondering if that's why Ramsay's thinking mill here. But again, he would have been thinking mill before they even left Winterfell. It wouldn't have had nothing to do with the hunt by a stream.
Yeah, I don't think it's anything I mean, just from
it has to be literary. If anything, it's literary. Something George put in, right? Not something a character's thinking about.
Yeah, I think it's Ramsay's going there because he knows there's two boys that are 4 and 7-ish.
Yeah, because he just saw them.
And in George's mind, he's like, all right, like, I want to fuck with these readers. Like, how can I make them think that Theon fathered this kid from the mill? It's because Roose fathered this kid from the mill.
It's just so cool. Like, this is a defining point of Ramsay's story, is this mill thing that he pulls with Theon here. And then, like, when it's time for him to unveil another really defining part of Ramsay's story, like where he came from, he makes it very similar to the story we've already heard. So
again,
I don't think there's anything really to talk about. I just think it's a cool connection.
Theon is Reek with Ramsay.
Theon's the third Reek. Yeah, so the first Reek is the real Reek, second Reek is Ramsay, and third Reek is Theon.
And Roose at some point will take over Theon?
No, there's some point where, like, it's when Roose first comes back. I don't know exactly what's happening.
He comes back to Winterfell
and he talks to him in private once or twice. Yeah. But he's pretty much always Ramsay's guy.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of excited to get back into that stuff, but it'll be a long time.
Yeah. But yeah, that's all I had.
Cool stuff, for sure. I think everything that we talked about was pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure. Good chapter. Next chapter, John chapter, I think it's going to be another good one. Not quite as long page-wise, but...
How about a little Helen Reed shout-out, too, real quick?
Yeah. I mean, again, they get a little bit into the magic, and it makes you wonder, like, we heard last chapter, right? That Tyrion chapter.
More magic.
I was going to bring that up to Kyle, too. Like, they're... Because it does seem like a throwaway thing, because seems like Lewin is trying to just make Theon nervous here.
Yeah.
But if there is magic coming back and Crannogmen have magic,
it'd be
are
cool
they more powerful now? Yeah, like when did Jojen's dream start happening?
Yeah.
He had a dream of a winged wolf. He told his dad. His dad sent him to Winterfell. Like, was that right after Dany's dragons? We kind of talked about this. Like, it seems like Bran was kind of set on this path because of his fall. Like, that's what triggered this stuff. But even Kyle said, like, does the dragons expedite it?
He was getting a raven pecked at him. No,
yeah, you're right. But, like, he wasn't doing much summer stuff. I mean, that might not be right. That might not be right either. There was probably some subconscious stuff there, but
who knows? All right, let's log out.
We'll see you guys in the next one for John 6, I think.
We do not so. Bye.